Good evening, everyone. My name is BJ, and I'm back with a brand new episode about my world travels. So, the year is 2018. In March of 2018, I had a business trip to Cape Town, South Africa. I was going there to do training presentations for my employer, and I would be there for a total of 4 days. I had several presentations scheduled over the 4 days. I arrived in Cape Town, and when I tell you that was my very first time in Africa, and South Africa is so beautiful that when I landed, I literally wanted to kiss the ground. I didn't, but I wanted to kiss the ground. So, a lot of times when you deplane overseas, for those of you who haven't been, a lot of times you land and you have to go down the stairs and you actually walk across the tarmac. You may get on a bus that will take you into the terminal, or depending on how it's set up, you may just walk right into the terminal, depending on how the airport's set up. So I had a short walk to get to a bus that was going to take us to the terminal. But I didn't kiss the ground. But what I did is I stopped. I let my little handbag go, my luggage go, and I put both hands on the ground and touched the ground to remember my ancestors who came from Africa in the past. I've actually done the African ancestry test on my mother's side of the family, and my mother's side, 6 generations ago, originated from Mali. The Tuareg, they're called the Tuareg people of Mali, and the Tuareg people are my ancestors on my mother's side. I'm going to do my father's side, the test for that sometime in the near future, but that test is expensive, so that's why I've been holding off on it. At any rate, getting back to 2018, March 2018, I land there, and I had this business trip, and I went to the hotel. Hotel was nice. I didn't know anything about the city. It's a huge Cape Town. I was in Cape Town. I should say that Cape Town, South Africa. It's a huge city, many different sections, and I was staying at a nice hotel. I want to say it was a DoubleTree Hotel, if I'm not mistaken. And I'll look it up and see if I can find that out later. But it was a nice hotel. It was in a very nice neighborhood full of like condos and sort of upscale housing. And then there's some on the other side of the main street, there were lots of businesses and things like that. So that was pretty interesting. I did the trainings that I had to do over that several days. But as usual, when I didn't have to work, I hopped in a taxi and I was out of there. I got in an Uber, and that's another great thing. Uber is pretty much all over the world, or you can find other companies that run similar services to Uber. So hopped in an Uber. I went down to the waterfront. It was absolutely gorgeous, and I spent some time down there. And also, while I was there, there was a guy that I knew from Facebook who was in South Africa. And he was actually living there at the time. He was originally from, I think, the Atlanta, Georgia area. So he hit me up, and well, I think I hit him up. And I was like, yo, what are you doing this weekend? And he's like, well, I have a church here, and you should come check us out. We're having a big celebration on this afternoon. I want to say it was a Saturday afternoon, I think. So I hopped into an Uber and went over there. That was a long ride. That was like 45 minutes. It was in one of the outer suburbs. So South Africa is very interesting because of the history of apartheid, much like the United States. They have neighborhoods that are largely East Indian, Dutch. They call themselves the Afrikaans, the descendants of the Dutch. And then they have the indigenous people who live in there in a lot of what they call townships. And this area where I was going to, I think it was the area that had formerly been mostly East Indian, but now middle class indigenous black people were moving there. And beautiful area, went to the church, they had a big concert, and man, that was amazing. I grew up in black church here in the States, and I thought we were pretty, what's the word? Not eccentric, but flamboyant or whatever it is. But these people were having high church. They had a great time over there. The city's beautiful. The mountains are beautiful. It's fascinating. So I liked it so much that I hit my travel buddies up on the phone and I was like, yo, this place is gorgeous. we've got to come back here for a pleasure trip. So another acquaintance of mine from Facebook hooked me up with a gentleman that lived there, Frank, who is a resident there and also at the time was a travel guide. So Frank hooked us up, and what we did was basically a 2 week stay. We spent 1 week um, in Cape Town, and then we spent another week in Johannesburg. So we first went to Johannesburg. We spent a week in Johannesburg. Beautiful. Johannesburg is more urban. It's landlocked. It doesn't have the ocean. It's a big city. Lots of people, lots of moving parts, and very interesting. Again, because of the history of the apartheid, much like the United States, you can see very distinct differences between the different kinds of neighborhoods. Now, because of the slow introduction or the gradual introduction of burgeoning black middle class and upper middle black class, you can see more black people moving into certain areas. But there are some areas that are still very much segregated. It's just the way it is for right now. But it's a beautiful place. Frank hooked us up with a beautiful place where each of my friends, we had our own 1 bedroom apartment. They were huge. You had the living room, a big bedroom, kitchen, a dining area, a huge master bath with I think a shower and like a Roman tub. And then there was also a half bath for guests, which was really, really nice. Fully furnished. And I was there with 4 friends, 4 of my travel buddies. So we each had our own 1 bedroom apartment, all in this gated community. Beautiful. Frank knew the guy that managed the place, so he hooked us up with really nice apartments. And then another guy that Frank knew hooked us up. He was our travel guide. So every morning, this guy would come and pick us up and take us to a different destination. We went to, one of the most memorable things we did was we went on a safari outside of Johannesburg. We got to see every kind of animal imaginable. I mean, you name it. Lions, tigers, and bears, they were all there. Ostrich, everything was there. Giraffes, absolutely mind-blowing and beautiful. The landscape there, the land itself is gorgeous. And then the second week, we went to Cape Town. Cape Town's totally different than Johannesburg. It's still urban, but it's more, to me, more developed, more upscale, and because it has the water there, it has a whole different vibe to it, right? So that was absolutely beautiful. We went there. He hooked us up with a huge apartment. I think it was 3 or 4 bedrooms. So each one of us had our own bedroom, and most of us had our own bath. I think some of us had to share a bath, but either way, the place was huge. It had a big balcony. It was in a gated community as well. Very nice. And we went to Table Mountain, which is this huge kind of flat mountain they have. They call it Table Mountain. And we went there, and you have 2 options. You can hike up to the top, which I understand takes a few hours, or you can take this, I want to say it was like a cable car, if I remember correctly. So I think we all took the cable car. My one friend wanted to hike. He's from New York, and he wanted to hike. And the rest of us were like, man, we don't have time for that. We're not hiking. So we took the cable car up. You go and you can walk around the entire top of the mountain. You can see the entire landscape of the city, the water, everything. Another day we went to the museum that memorialized Nelson Mandela and the history of apartheid, the Apartheid Museum. It memorialized the history of apartheid, the history of President Nelson Mandela, the time that he spent in prison and incarcerated. It showed a lot of the history, the brutal history of South Africa. And what I like about South Africa is that in many ways, they've really reconciled their past. Are there still battles that they're, waging to bring true equity and inclusivity for the people that are native there, the indigenous Africans? Yes, but they've really made public, hey, these are the mistakes that were made. We don't want to revisit that history. We're forging a new path forward, even though we know it's difficult, it's challenging, but we're forging a new path forward that will include everyone. And I like that. So that was really cool. We went there. That museum was tough because a lot of the stuff that the South Africans went through was really, really tough. And you have to think about the end of apartheid was more recent than the end of this, so-called civil rights era in the States. Civil rights era in the States more or less ended in the late 60s, whereas apartheid, I think it was ended, I want to say late 80s, early 90s. So it's still very, very young. But for a newly forming society, they've done a lot of work in a short period of time. I'm proud to say that when I was there with my friends, we were staying in a fairly upscale area, and we went to one restaurant that was recommended to us in the neighborhood we were staying in. And it was full of young professional black folks, that the local Africans who were doing well. They owned businesses, they were doing their thing, and they were moving ahead and making money and claiming their place in their own land, which I thought was absolutely fabulous. So a beautiful place. I highly recommend you go to South Africa. They have so many different things you can do there. We did so many things, but I'm almost at 11 minutes that I can't even tell you every single thing that we did. But we did a lot there. They have wine country there outside of the city. You can go out to vineyards and you can stay at wineries, and kind of like Napa Valley, sort of. You can go and stay at wineries. You can go visit for the day, or you can rent a suite or a villa and stay for a couple days. It's incredible. It's absolutely beautiful. One of the things I said, we went to this place, I think it's called the Cape of Good Hope, if I'm not mistaken. And we were standing at the top of this peak, and I looked out and I said to myself, I no wonder the Europeans had to stop and colonize this place. It was so gorgeous, they couldn't just pass it by, which is tragic and ironic. But it's a beautiful place, a beautiful country, a great place to visit. For me, I think it was the best place to start my journey in Africa. I'll be going to Ghana. Some of my friends have been to Ghana several times now. But going to places like Ghana, where many of the African Americans are ancestors were kidnapped and enslaved, going there is going to be more challenging, because friends and acquaintances that have gone there and gone to the forts where the Africans were enslaved before they were put in ships and sent to the quote unquote New World, nearly everybody I know has a breakdown there. They cry, they go through a lot of emotional trauma. So for me, South Africa is a good initial introduction to Africa. And then you can go to the places where the Western countries, Nigeria, Ghana, etc., where our ancestors were mostly kidnapped and enslaved from. But hey, I'm BJ. I hope you guys enjoyed this conversation. I'm at 12 and a half minutes now, so I'm not going to talk your heads off. I hope you liked this. It was a great trip. I've been to South Africa twice. I plan on going back to many other African countries in the near future. Ghana, Nigeria. I'd love to go to Ethiopia, Egypt, Sudan, all those places. Benin, where one of my favorite singers, Angelique Kidjo, is from. I want to go and see the motherland and all the different countries in the motherland. So have a great evening or a great morning whenever you watch this. And always remember that my motto is that self-care is critical and must be ongoing. Peace. I'll be back soon with a brand new episode. Leave your comments and let me know what you'd like to see more of, what you didn't like. And also like, comment, share, and subscribe. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.